Welcome to Christian Culture Heritage Online. This 8-week class will go through the material for this course in a very rapid fashion. So we'll be covering a lot of material over the next 8 weeks. And so in this video, I wanted to give you a brief overview of what we'll be doing in the course, as well as the assignments required for the course. But I would encourage you to take the time to read through the entire syllabus, which is available on Blackboard, so that you have a full understanding of everything that you'll be required to do and expected to do in the course. If after watching this video and going through the syllabus and other materials posted on Blackboard, you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about the material or some of the requirements for this course. Now, thinking through this introductory material and what we'll be accomplishing in this course, I want to first start talking a little bit about an overview of what to expect in this course. The name Christian Cultural Heritage to a lot of people is a confusing one, and understandably so. And we'll spend some time actually in the remainder of this week, in the videos for this week, reviewing that and looking at some things related to each of those terms and going a little bit more in depth into this introductory information and thinking about the topic of this course. But in general, there are a couple of bullet points I want to share with you in thinking about this course. First, the idea behind this course is to bring together the things that you have been studying in the Bible part of the core curriculum and the cultural heritage course, the Western Cultural Heritage, American Cultural Heritage series, bringing those together, which means that this course is directed to seniors preparing to graduate. It is not for students earlier in their career, predominantly because the idea is that you've gone through all of the other Bible courses that you have needed to take and that you've gone through the Western Cultural Heritage courses. So this should be taken towards the end of your educational career. And so if you are in the position of being a sophomore or junior, I would encourage you to find one of the other courses that you're required to take and take this course later down the line once you've had the chance to go through some additional Bible courses as well as having gone through some courses in your major. This is a capstone course, so the expectation is that you have done some additional work in other courses to tie that all together. Secondly, we're going to be thinking about specifically the impact that Christianity has made on Western culture. We'll say more in just a minute about this, but one of the textbooks, for example, is called How Christianity Changed the World. So one of the things we're going to ask you to think about, and one of the things that you're going to be exploring in this course, is this impact that Christianity and Western culture have had on each other, sometimes in very positive ways, sometimes in negative ways. And so we'll be looking at how Western culture has changed and how that's impacted Christianity, how Christianity has changed and how that's impacting Western culture. And so we'll be exploring this from a variety of perspectives, some historical perspectives, some demographic perspective, in order to kind of think through some of the ways in which we as Christians sit at a historical moment where there has been a development over the past 2 millennium of these two elements of human experience working together. And so in some respects, there is a past and present examination here in those first 2 points, but then there's also a forward-looking component to this course as well. And thinking about how Christianity changed the world, here you sit as a student about ready to move on into a vocation, a career, Many of you, of course, are already working, and so there's some transition, yes, in finishing up your education and kind of either continuing the job you're in or finding a new job. But the goal here is to encourage you to think and provide you the opportunity to think about where are you going here after graduation as far as the impact you will be making as a Christian in a particular chosen field. And so whether you're going to be a Christian scientist or a Christian educator or a Christian business person, you're going to be making some decisions about, how am I going to combine these two elements of my life in moving forward. Now, there are some students at Faulkner, and you may be one of them, who are not Christians of any sort. And so some of this will be asking you to think about, okay, if Christianity is not your worldview, the encouragement is, of course, consider, is Christianity a valid worldview? And I would love to see everyone be a Christian. So, there's encouragement to kind of compare your worldview with Christianity. But then also for you to think about, okay, even if you're not a Christian, what kind of impact is your worldview going to have on your life as a business person, a scientist, an educator, whatever your chosen career might be. And so, again, there's kind of this past aspect to the course, looking back at the past. There is a present aspect, where are we now? And then a future aspect of where are you planning on going forward in your future studies, in your career, and how is that going to be shaped by the things that you've learned in your career here at Faulkner. So kind of trying to tie together everything, right? The core curriculum for Bible, Western cultural heritage, with your major and your career vocational goals. And so there's a couple of things that we'll be preparing you for in this course. The desire is that in these objectives, which are present in the syllabus, there are certain skills, there is certain knowledge that you are expected, that we're expecting you to be able to have or to do at the end of the course. And these are predominantly related to the things we just talked about. So part of this course will be this self-examination. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my goals in my life? Spiritual goals, professional goals, academic goals, the kind of impact I want to make in the society around me. And then also thinking about, okay, how do I take my particularly chosen field, whatever discipline that might be, academic discipline that might be, and how do I develop that in a way that I can serve people and that I can express Christian values, that I can meld my religious outlook with my career, to make it what is frequently called a vocation. That there's a calling here I'm called to do. And then also to be able to talk about how does Christianity influence, or how can it influence American culture and my particular field of study. And so all of that is the kind of the nuts and bolts of what we're expecting from you from this course, which is why it is a course that is meant for students further along in their degrees, because in some respects a sophomore and a junior has not had sufficient enough coursework, let alone sufficient enough experiences to pull these things together, just because they don't have the information, just because they haven't done as much investigation. And so, this is kind of a course that is going to ask you to really be introspective, as well as look at some objective knowledge outside of your individual experience. Now, it would be nice to be in a situation where I could say, can you do those things? Can you demonstrate you're self-aware? Can you discuss the influence of Christianity? Can you describe how particular disciplines may be developed? And you say yes, and I give you an A. It'd be nice to be able to do that. However, of course, that's not how education works in our contemporary society. So in many respects, we have to have exercises, assignments, that demonstrate your ability to do those kind of things. And that's where we get into the assignments for this course. There are a couple of different types of assignments that you'll be expected to complete. There is only one exam in this course, a final exam, that will be given in week 8. But throughout the rest of the time, there will be other assignments that you will be required to do. Each week there will be discussion posts you will be required to complete. There will be several critical engagement essays that you will be responsible for writing. And then during week 8 as well, there will be a reflective essay that you will need to complete. There is more information about all of these in the syllabus. There's also information on the Blackboard site, but I do want to take some time and talk about these to some extent to give you an idea of what to expect for each of these. And of course, as I mentioned, there will be more information on the Blackboard site and in the syllabus, but after reviewing those, if you do have questions, feel free to contact me about that. And we'll talk more about each of those assignments here in a minute. For the course, there are 3 textbooks that if you do not have already, you should get as soon as possible. They are available in electronic format as well as paperback or hardbound format if you would prefer that. You know, but whatever format you prefer, please get those as soon as possible. Information on ordering them, of course, is on the textbook website through Faulkner, as well as in the syllabus. So you'll need to have a copy of the Bible. You probably already have one. It does not matter to me what particular version you use. You're free to use through an app, free to have your own personal Bible. The translation doesn't matter. Just have a copy of the Bible or have access to one. You know, it is freely available in a variety of ways. So if you don't have a copy already and aren't sure how to get one, you know, feel free to get in touch with me about that. But in many cases, you probably already have a copy of the Bible. The second book for the course is by Guinness, called The Call: Finding and Fulfilling the Central Purpose of Your Life. It's not a very difficult book to get through, more devotional in nature. It is meant to be the introspective text to help get you thinking about how do I determine my purpose in life? How do I think about what I'm going to be engaged in as a part of my career, while also looking at it as a vocation, right? I'm serving people, I'm serving God through it. And this will be the subject of several discussion questions throughout the weeks, so that will be the focus of the examination of the call. The third book is Alvin Schmidt's How Christianity Changed the World. And Schmidt, in his book, examines the impact of Christianity in a variety of fields, in education, in the arts, in health sciences, in charity, in sexuality, in marriage, in gender, right, all sorts of things. Christians have made significant impact in Western culture, and often in ways that are overlooked or undervalued. And so Schmidt brings those to light It is a more academic book, more focused on history and examining the historical impact. We will be using Schmidt's book not only for the content and learning how Christianity changed the world, but also the critical engagement essays that you will have to write for the course will be based on readings from Schmidt. What I would encourage you to do in thinking about reading for this class is to for the Guinness book, and the different chapters you'll read for the Guinness book, in many respects, you can read that straightforwardly. And so if you have chapters 1 through 4, for example, to read, sitting down reading chapters 1 through 4 from beginning to end, again, not long chapters, more devotional in nature, fairly easy to get through. But for the Schmidt book, there are a couple of things to think about when it comes to reading, because the reading in this course for Schmidt, it's not devotional in nature. It is more academic. And so to think about, instead of just sitting down and say, okay, after I read chapters 1 through 3 for this week, and so I'm just going to sit down, I'll read beginning in chapter 1, read the whole way through chapter 1, chapter 2, etc. Instead, to really get the material, I would encourage you to think about taking notes. Now, that can be taking notes in the text itself, whether you get a physical copy or an e-reader. Most e-reading programs, e-book programs, allow you to underline, to make notes, etc. in the text. But I would encourage you to be prepared to take notes. For the final exam, you will be required to answer some questions related to Schmidt, and so to study, having those notes together would be very helpful. I would encourage you also to be prepared to read through multiple times to really get the information. Not only because of the content that will be necessary for the final exam, but also because of the critical engagement essays. For the critical engagement essays, you really want to understand what is the point, or what are the points that Schmidt is making, and think through, how do I agree with that? Do I disagree with this? Is this correct? Is this not correct? And so being prepared to read multiple times to really engage in the material. Thirdly, again, don't approach it as study, start reading in the very first word and keep reading to the last word. Instead, take the time to read the introduction, read the conclusion. Right? That'll give you a good sense of what the chapter is about, and then go through and read the headings. All right, so this is the point that Schmidt is trying to make in this chapter. This is his conclusions. All right, what are the ways in which he builds that case? Right? And so thinking through, okay, he's going to talk about this first, and he's going to talk about those things. So instead of just reading straight through, kind of reading the beginning, the end, thinking about how the material fits together. Might also be useful to you to go section by section and kind of bring, maybe write a sentence or two in your notes that, or highlight, or a little note out to the side. This is the point that he makes in this section. And so thinking about that approach, and I'm going to read this section, I'm going to reflect on it, I'm going to think about it, what's it talking about, instead of just trying to read through. Don't try to read every word. Instead, you're trying to grasp the overall concepts. Right? So reading every word isn't necessarily going to help you. Just think about it as kind of, all right, I'm getting this chunk. What does this chunk, right? These 3 paragraphs here in this section, what's it about? All right, I got that. All right, what's this next section about? All right, so how does all of this fit together? So instead of necessarily going from beginning to end, which may or may not be helpful for you, think about breaking it up, organizing your thoughts, reflecting as you're reading, in interrogating the text, okay, this doesn't sound right. Is this correct? Well, if this is true, what does that really mean? And so that's that might not be an approach that you're used to in reading, that I would encourage you to use to get the most out of these texts as you can, to get things out that you will remember, to get things out that would be helpful and useful, not only in this class, but also as you think about taking the material out of this class and looking forward to how you're going to put it into effect in your life. Other things to pay attention to, if there's italics, if there's lists, if there's charts, all of these things are meant to try and help you understand the material and highlight things that are important. But ask yourself questions as well. Really kind of interrogate the text. What about this? But is this true all the time? Or those kind of questions. If I accept what Schmidt is telling me, does that change anything? Do I have to act differently or think differently? Or if this is true, does it teach me something different about Christianity or teach me something different about Western culture? Really try to engage the text and not just try to get a certain level of content. And that, I think, would be the most useful type of approach. All right, so let's get into talking about the assignments. Every week, there are assignments that you must complete. Some of those assignments are writing assignments, discussion posts, engagement essays. Some of those assignments are watching video lectures, somewhat like this, in this type of format. The links for those lectures are found in the course content section, and each week there is a link to the video lectures that you will need to watch. There's a lot of video to engage. Remember, we're taking a 16-week course and going through it in 8 weeks. And so we are packing a lot of material in a very short amount of time. So that means that there's a lot of time that you'll be required to watch video lectures. In order to demonstrate that you've watched those lectures, you need to submit every week notes from those videos or a 500-word summary for each lecture that demonstrates that you have read, or that you have watched, that you've watched those videos. Don't just copy down the PowerPoint slides, the bullets. Really take the notes. And, okay, so what am I saying in this particular bullet point that's important? This will be helpful not only to demonstrate you've completed this, but also as you prepare for the final exam. You'll have notes. Right? So just like thinking about it as taking notes in a lecture class. The freedom here is that you can watch it whenever you want during a particular week. But think of it as I'm actually engaged in this class, so I have to take the notes to prepare for this class. These are due at the end of the week. There is a link on Blackboard in the course content folder for each week to submit those notes. If you have any problems at any time trying to submit through those links, you are welcome to email me with your notes. Now, it's going to be different for each student. Some students might prefer to, as they're watching the lecture, write out by hand what their notes are. If you do that, don't feel like you have to copy that into a word processing program. Instead, just take a picture of your notes and send that to me. And then that'll be sufficient. If you want to type up your notes, or if you're a person that in most cases you might not need to watch the video so much as listen to it in some cases, and so you might have the video running in the background and you're taking notes on your laptop or a tablet or something like that. you can submit that. So either format is fine. Whatever is going to be most useful to you. Studies have shown that people that write out their notes by hand are more likely to remember or remember more of the material, but that might not be the most useful for you, depending on your situation. Now, one of the things I've tried to do with my video lectures is to condense them to, or is to break them up into 15 to 20 minute sections, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. The reason for doing this is so that, you know, if you have, okay, I only have like half an hour today, or half an hour right now, well, then just watch that little chunk, take your notes, right? And so you can kind of break it up that way. Certainly if you have longer time periods where you can watch an hour and a half, that's great. But in many cases you might have to kind of break it up a little bit here, a little bit there, and piecemeal it through the week. Now, we have several lectures throughout the weeks that are essentially guest lectures from a variety of other scholars and ministers and ethicists and other things like that. Those videos we're linking to from other YouTube accounts, so I can't edit those down. So in many cases, you're either going to have to remember your spot and come back, or break out the entire time to actually sit there and listen to it. But those are required lectures that you need to submit notes on. It'd be like if a guest lecturer came into class, and you know that material would be a part of it. So submitting those notes is very important. I do want to say that there are a couple of videos of mine that have come from other classes, sometimes from live classes, where I've you know, I was in a face-to-face class but recording the lecture. In many cases, sometimes there are assignments talked about in some of those videos. Unless you see that assignment in the syllabus or it's in the course content, you can ignore it. Right? So don't worry about any of the assignments or discussion about a study guide or terms you need to know for the exam in those videos. Only pay attention to the assignments talked about in the syllabus or that are listed in each of the course content folders. That might be a little confusing. I apologize for that, but this is material that I thought would also be useful in this course, and so it was a little bit easier for me to just bring that material over. If you're ever unsure about something, either you're confused about some of the material, or if you have a question about, do I need to know this for the exam or for something else, feel free to contact me. I'm more than willing to answer any questions you have about this. So, but remember, every week, by the end of the week, you're expected to submit notes based on the video lectures for a particular week. Additionally, you are required to make discussion board posts each week. In many cases, there will be 4 posts required, but in both the first week, this week, and the last week, you only need to make 2 that are related to specific questions I've asked. In addition, there are other posts that you need to make that interact with the other students. All right. So after you've posted your answers to my questions in the discussion board, you need to interact with 4 other posts. Now, those other posts can be other students that have posted. That can be comments that I make. Right? I'll be engaged with, I'm not going to respond to everybody, but I'll respond to some discussions, or I might ask additional questions. So you can respond to me, you can respond to other students, you can answer additional questions, or you can bring up something that you thought was interesting that wasn't asked. Right? So 4 posts in response to me, my questions in the discussion board, and then 4 additional posts. So usually about 8 posts a week. The first post, the answers to my questions have to be at least 100 words. The other posts have to be at least 25 words, and more than "I agree," or "That's good point," "Me too." Right? Say something substantial. Right? And so if you agree, say why you agree or what you really thought was important. If you disagree, why did you disagree? Right? So think about those. Again, that's a lot of posts each week and most weeks, but we're condensing a lot here. The first post each week is due by midnight on Wednesday. So each week you need to have the first post. You need to have posted at least something by Wednesday. And then the rest of the posts need to be done by the following Sunday, by the end of the week. And so each of the 4 posts to my questions are graded. You don't get a grade for the additional posts, but if you do not do them, you lose points. Right? So you don't get points for the additional posts, but you lose points if you don't do them. So each of the 4 initial posts are graded. The others, if you don't complete them, you would lose points. Further explanation is found in the syllabus. There is one exam, a final exam, comprehensive, covering the material from the textbooks, from the video lectures, from discussions we have. A study guide will be provided probably around week 6, might be a little bit earlier, but by at least week 6, the study guide will be available. The exam will be multiple choice questions, some short answer questions, an essay, asking you to combine all of the material over this course. And since we're going to be moving pretty quickly, and there are other assignments, I didn't feel the need for additional exams. So just one exam at the end of the course. More will be available about that later, and is also available in the syllabus. Beginning in week 2 and going through week 7, each week there is a critical engagement essay due. Based on the readings from Schmidt's How Christianity Changed the World, you are going to be asked to critically engage the ideas presented there. Each of those has to be at least 500 words, which works out to be 2 to 3 pages double-spaced, but it's based on your word count, not the size of how many pages it takes. Is based on the word count. That 500 words is a minimum. If it is not at least 500 words, you will lose points. So 500 words at least. There are 6 opportunities to submit essays each week, weeks 2 through 7. To get the full amount of points, you have to do 5. So you have to do 5, but there's an opportunity to do 6. If you do 6, I will take the 5 highest scores and then also give you bonus points for doing that 6th one. So if you're a little concerned about doing well in the course, one way to get additional points is doing all 6 of the essays. However, if you only want to do 5, that's fine. And that means it's up to you. You can do the first 5. Or you can skip the first one and do the last 5. Or you could do the first 2, skip 1, do the last 3. However you want to do it is fine if you only want to do 5. But as I mentioned, you do get additional points if you do all 6. So what am I looking for you to think about? Well, In each of these chapters you'll be reading, there is a lot of information. And for each week, you'll be expected to read multiple chapters. So for the essay, I'm just wanting you to pick out one idea, just one idea. So for example, in there's a chapter where Schmidt talks about hospitals and how Christians started the first hospitals. So you can just focus on, I mean, that's not the only thing he talks about in the chapter, but you can just focus on Christians started the first hospitals. Okay? So just one idea. Don't try to talk about everything in the chapter. Don't try to talk about all 3 chapters that you're supposed to read in a particular week. Just pick one idea. And then in your writing, briefly describe the idea. What does Schmidt say about Christians starting hospitals? Right? Just a couple words, about 100 words, 200 words, roughly half the paper, right? A third to half of the paper describing the idea. And then in the second part of your essay, engage this idea. Okay, think about it as the so what part of your essay. Who cares that Christians started the first hospital? Is this an important idea? In other cases, you might say, well, here's what he says about gender, something to do with women, maybe. Right? Do you agree or disagree with him? Why? Another way to think about this is, what is this piece of information? Why is this good to know? Or what does this tell us about Christian culture? Or if this is true, what are the consequences of this? Right? If everybody understood this, then we would have to do this. Don't try to answer all of those questions that are present on the screen. Instead, think about answering one of those questions. Right? So the first half, basic description. Second half, try to engage that issue. And so, here are some questions you might think about. Okay, if I engage, what do you mean engage? Right? Critically think about, is this true? Is this not true? Why is this good to know? What are the consequences of this? That's that extra part that I'm looking for. Not just telling me what he says about something, but thinking through what he says about that. And so that's the part that I'm really looking for you to do. And so that's an important part of that essay component. And so each week there will be one of those due in weeks 2 through 7. So there's nothing due week 1, nothing due week 8 when it comes to critical engagement essays. During week 8, there's another essay due, a reflective essay. 1,500 words due Wednesday of week 8. There are further guidelines on Blackboard, as well as a rubric that breaks down what I'm looking for. But essentially, there are a couple of components to this essay. The first component is an autobiographical sketch, telling me a little bit about you. Now, there are certain components to that sketch that need to be included. That information is in the assignment on Blackboard. Things like, and you get your choice. You need to talk about your religious background and then 4 other things related to your background. Family life, socioeconomic status, education, right? All sorts of things that are listed in the assignment on Blackboard. You need to pick 4 in addition to talking about your religious background. The second part is kind of a reflection on where you are now, what you think about some of those things that you talked about. And then the last part is your goals. What are my goals for my career? Academic goals, professional goals, spiritual goals. Asking you really to think about what influenced me, where am I now, where do I want to go? And so that's kind of the goal of this assignment, is to bring all that together in a way that is kind of a cohesive examination of your life. 1,500 words, that works about 5 to 6 pages double-spaced. As I mentioned, not due until the end of the course in week 8. and additional guidelines under assignments on Blackboard. Here's the grading breakdown. Gives you an idea of how much each is worth. Those notes every week make up 200 points. If you do not submit any notes for this course, you're not going to get anything higher than a B. And even a B is unlikely, because that would mean you'd have to do everything else perfectly. And so make sure to be completing those notes every week. Discussion posts, final exam, engagement essays, reflective essay. Each of my courses tend to be out of 1,000 points. I do points instead of percentages for a couple of reasons. First of all, you can always kind of figure out where you are and where you need to go through addition and subtraction. I currently have so many points. In order to get an A, I need to have 900 points. So what do I need to do on the other assignments in order to get my A? And so instead of having to try and figure out, okay, these assignments are worth this percent, and these assignments are worth that percent, and and all that together, it's just addition and subtraction. Additionally, this means that at any point, no one assignment is going to destroy your semester. If for 1 week, for example, you didn't get through all the notes and you only turn in half of them, that's not going to destroy your semester. If in a particular week you don't get all of the discussion posts done, that's not going to destroy your semester. Let's say you only do 4 engagement essays instead of 5. It's not going to destroy your semester. Now, if you don't turn in any notes and you continually don't do the discussion posts and you only do 2 of the engagement essays, right? If these things build up, yeah, it's going to have a very negative effect on your grade. But one mistake here or 2 or 3 mistakes there isn't going to destroy your entire semester. And so the goal is to try and spread that out so no one assignment is going to have a significant impact on your grade. Yes, cumulatively, if you don't do the work, it's going to have an impact. Here's the breakdown for the grading scale. 1,000 to 900 points is an A, 899 to 800 is a B, etc. A couple other important policies. There's additional information available in the syllabus, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. Contact me within 3 days if you have a concern about how something was graded. This is a university policy. You must contact me in writing, which of course is online, so that's pretty much a given. But if you get that first engagement essay back and I say, well, you didn't discuss this, or you should have discussed that, and you look at your essay and say, no, I did do that, and it's right here in this paragraph. Within 3 days of getting that back, contact me and say, please regrade this. Look at paragraph 3 where I discussed what you told me I should discuss, and I'll take a look at it. I make mistakes. I'm not going to be vindictive. I'm going to be fair, and so if there needs to be a correction in my grading, I'll make that. Or I'm going to say, no, I see why you were saying this, and here's my reason for that. But again, that's a university policy, so you have 3 days after graded work is returned. Regarding makeup or late work, you can turn in essays up to 2 days late. Each day you turn it in late, you lose a letter grade, so after 2 days, I won't grade it. Now, if there are specific circumstances, please get in contact with me. I'd be glad to work around arrangements if there is something specifically going on. But in general, this is the policy. And so contact me if you have a specific situation. Only in rare circumstances will I accept late work for the notes, the discussion posts, things like that. Again, it's a matter of contacting me, explaining the situation. Given that you have the entire week to do the work, you do have, it's not the same as if you would miss a specific class in a week, because that's the only time we meet. So there's not as much leniency there if you miss a specific assignment, since you do have quite a bit of time each week to complete that assignment in. But certainly, if you have specific questions, I am more than willing, or not questions, specific circumstances, I am more than willing to talk to you about it and figure out what is going to be the best thing to do in relation to that particular situation. So it's better to contact me sooner in a course rather than later. And if you wait until week 8 and say, well, this is what's been going on, there's less I can do. But if something happens in week 2, contact me in week 2 and say, hey, this is what's going on, and it's going to be a little difficult for me. And so we can talk. Well, is there a way we can extend some deadlines, or is there, maybe this is an appropriate time to withdraw from the course, or whatever the situation might be. Getting in contact with me sooner will give us more opportunities to try and find a solution that will be beneficial to you and won't put you in a very difficult position. A couple things to think about when it comes to academic honesty that I want to highlight. And of course, there's an academic honor code that we're all expected to abide by, students as well as faculty. And with an online course, there is a lot of opportunity to engage in behaviors that don't line up with the values of Faulkner or the values of the academic community in general. And so I really want to emphasize how important it is that the work you submit to me, whether that is a discussion post or notes from a video lecture or an engagement essay, it needs to be your work. And even if it's not the best work, I'd rather it be your work than you trying to pass off somebody else's work. And so a couple things to think about. Don't use someone else's work as your own. For the engagement essays, what I'm looking for example, is for you to read it, you to think about it, you tell me what you think about it. I don't care what some other person who's not taking this class thinks about it. So you don't need any outside sources for any of the assignments in the class. You need the information that is in the textbooks, you need the information in the videos, and that's pretty much it. I want to see what you think in most of the assignments. So don't take what somebody else has said and use it as your own. That's called a plagiarism. Again, for the engagement essays, you do not need to do this. You do not need to do, these are not research papers. These are your thoughts. If, however, you do, for whatever reason, use an outside source, an outside website, some other person, whatever, make sure that you give credit. And don't say this is your thought when it's not your thought. Which means you need to give credit if appropriate. And if you use somebody else's material, you need to give credit for it. If you're not sure how to do that, talk to me, and then we can talk about how to appropriately cite it, whether it's necessary, etc. Don't use someone else to complete assignments if you haven't cleared it with me. This is not meant to be a collaborative approach. This is meant to be you working through this individually to talk about the things that we're talking about in this course. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is you to do your best work. I want to see what you can do. I want you to give your all in trying to do the best you can in this course. That you can feel confident that the work that you've submitted is the best. It's your work. There is nothing to be ashamed of in doing your best. You know, and I would rather you write a C paper that is your thoughts than to try and write what you think might be an A paper by plagiarizing or taking somebody else's thoughts. Because first of all, I'm going to catch you if you do that. But second of all, you can feel confident and you can hold your head up high as this is my work. I can feel confident in my work. If, again, you don't need to use any outside sources, but if you do, make sure you cite it properly. If you're unsure how to cite things, how to give credit, get in touch with me about that. Do whatever it takes to keep your integrity. Be a person of integrity. Right? Be a person who is honest, is faithful in the charge of doing their best work. And so if that means turning in an essay you're not proud of, yeah, you're going to get a bad grade on it, but you can feel confident in, okay, you know, it wasn't my best work, but it is my work. I'm a person of integrity, and what I submitted was my work. It's very important. There are a lot of temptations in online work and online education to try and submit something else. You're going to get caught. But also then, if you are a person of integrity and submit work as a person of integrity, you don't have to worry about, am I going to get caught? What are the consequences if I get caught? What's this going to do to me and my career and my grade and my GPA and all those kind of, you don't have to worry about that if you live as a person of integrity. So please, you know, keep that in mind. If you need any sort of academic accommodations because of a documented condition, you probably already know at this point to get in contact with Project Key, the Center for Disability Studies. Information is available on the front page of the syllabus. You, again, probably at this point already know how to get in contact with them, but I would encourage you to do that as soon as possible so that we can make the appropriate arrangements for you to succeed in this course. In many cases, probably a lot of the communication will be done through email. Most of you are probably taking this course and are not at the Montgomery campus. You're taking it online because you are at one of the extension campuses, or you might be located throughout the United States someplace. And so most communication will probably be through email. I try to respond to my emails within 48 hours. If you've not heard from me within 48 hours, please feel free to email me back. I try to get back as soon as possible, usually a lot less than 48 hours, but if you haven't heard back from me within 48 hours, feel free to email me again to make sure that I'm addressing your question because of how quickly this course moves. But if you are on campus, or if for whatever reason you would prefer to make a phone call and talk to me by phone, I am available Monday through Thursday from 10:45 to 12 in my office in Montgomery, and so you can feel free to get in contact with me then. If you are going to be dropping by, a little email heads up would be appreciated, but not required. Just in case I have another appointment at that time, to make sure that you don't miss out, right? That you have just a few minutes here, and I already have another student in my office, right? So that might be a good idea. My phone number and office location are available on the syllabus and in the instructor contact folder on Blackboard. But please, whatever I can do to help you at any point, feel free to get in contact with me. Again, most things can be handled by email. I do check my email frequently, and even over weekends, and try to get back as quickly as possible. So at any point, if something comes up, feel free to contact me about this. I'm looking forward to a great course. I'm looking forward to a lot of good discussion. Hopefully the material will be useful for you, not only to think about some of the things that we're talking about, but also, as you think about, finishing your degree here and moving on to other things. So I'm looking forward to each of our weeks interacting with each other, and feel free to get in contact with me at any point, and I hope that you have a great semester, and feel free, as I said, to get in contact with me about anything after you've reviewed the syllabus and some of the other information available on Blackboard.